Hello and welcome back to the Right Within podcast. I'm your host, Michaela the Conscious Queen, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about projection and what is the spiritual significance of projection. Why do people project and how to catch ourselves when we are projecting? Because there is a way to curb it or control it, I guess. So, first, I want to talk about what projection is. I'm going to give the psychology definition of projection. So, it is the psychological defense mechanism where someone is unconsciously attributing their own thoughts, feelings, behaviors onto another person or group. So basically, this just means like you are pushing out, basically your own opinions and your own thoughts onto someone else as if it is that person's ability. Well, not ability, but that person's own feelings or whatever. So I'm going to give you guys a real life example of this because everybody projects. Okay, this is not just it's not just only men do this, only women do this. No, like everybody projects. So I'll give you an example. So I guess the biggest one is when there's gossip. So gossiping, you're actually talking about yourself. So if, like, for example, you gossip about someone and you say, oh, she's not funny or he's not funny, it's because on a unconscious level, the person thinks that they are not funny, right? The person that's saying that thinks that they lack humor within themselves. It's an unconscious thing, but I'm going to get into why we even do this in the first place. And it starts with our childhood, right? So when we are children, we have to accept what is good versus what is not good, right? To survive, right? So basically, these are the parameters that are set by our parents or community where we grew up, things like that. And that's just basically what you needed in order to survive. Okay, I hope that's making sense. So projection, you received your parents' projections, you received your teachers' projections, you received your community's projections, whatever you were receiving growing up, that was a part of your survival. So the reason why we do this is because it helps us survive. It helps the ego survive. But as you know, this is a spiritual podcast, so we're going to talk about the spiritual meaning of projection and why or how to curb it, right? Because the projection is all about your ego per se, but when you evolve spiritually and you detach further from your ego, you realize that it's all the same. Right? Everything is everything is all the same, right? And we don't need to project. So I'm going to get into a little bit about that. But yeah, the main reason why people project is because of ego, because a fragile ego. Your ego needs to be protected. Your ego is your thoughts, right? Like your ideas, your beliefs, things like that. They need to be protected, because or else you would go crazy. So it's a defense mechanism. It's how your conscious mind protects itself, how your ego protects itself. But as you spiritually evolve, you realize you project less and less and less and less, because you don't have the desire to make someone believe what you believe. You don't have the desire to I guess, how can I say, you don't have the desire to, um, I guess, push out or, um, like, basically just convince other people or convince others of your worth and your value. As you spiritually evolve, you feel like this is innately what you are. You don't have to project, or even the negative things that you don't like about yourself. You find less and less as you evolve spiritually that you don't need to do these things because it's an ego based thing. So, how do you catch yourself when you're projecting? Because we're human beings, right? So, as much as we want to evolve spiritually, we're still humans, right? We still have, we still project. So, how do you catch yourself? So, basically, when you're talking to someone or you're having a conversation, um, just basically say things like, if that's what you're into, right? So, like, let's say I'm having a conversation and, you say, oh, okay, I like, I like going for walks in the park. Okay. Um, like, if that's what you like, right? Like, that way, you're not telling the person what they like, right? They're not saying, oh, you like to take walks in the park, because really, you don't know what that other person likes to do, right? And also, you catch yourself from projecting by asking questions. So, this is very, very crucial when you're trying to evolve spiritually. You have to ask the question. Ask somebody like how they actually feel about that thing instead of giving them an answer, right? So that's what projection is. You usually give someone an answer before they even have a chance to give their own answer, right? But to catch yourself, if you wish to evolve spiritually, you ask that person the question, right? So instead of, like, I don't know, if you're talking to your friend and you want to find out, like, you know, what they want to do for their birthday, instead of saying, oh, like, you want to do this for your birthday, right? And give them an activity that you want to do, not what they want to do, right? Not what that person wants to do, right? You ask them, what would you like to do for your birthday? Type of deal. That way you get an authentic answer and you didn't push your belief onto that person. You didn't project your ideas or your beliefs onto the other person or people, right? So I hope that makes sense. Because this is like so prevalent, and I feel like it's more so with the insecurities, like people casting their insecurities onto people. I've heard so many stories from people saying like, oh, my teacher told me that I would never do this, or like my parents told me I would never be this. And when you are a child, you're very susceptible to people's projections. But the great thing is that when you become older and you evolve spiritually, you realize that you don't have to accept projections that you don't want, right? And you can catch yourself when you are projecting towards other people. And the main way to do this is by asking questions. Questions are awesome. I grew up hearing that like there are stupid questions, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. No such thing. Like, you have to really inquire, ask, the universe, ask God, like, okay, like what is it that I'm actually interested in, right? Or ask that person, like, what are you actually interested in, instead of pushing your beliefs onto the other person. because it robs them of their free will, which everybody has um everybody has the ability, especially in adulthood. Everybody has the ability to make their own choices. So you want to preserve that right within yourself and within others. But right, if you want it to be done to you, you have to um you have to do it for others. Right? So if you want to receive that, then you have to be that. Does that make sense? So if you don't want other people projecting their, BS onto you, you have to stop projecting your BS onto people, you know? So I hope that makes sense. The way you do this is through meditation, asking questions, right? And being kind of neutral, I guess. Neutrality is one of the greatest things, because neutrality, it kind of protects your ego in a way. Neutrality allows you to learn new things, right? And it holds back your projections. And the reason why it's so cool, right, being neutral about things, or being neutral in general, is because you don't convince other people, and they can't convince you either. Right? And there's a level of respect there. So I hope this is making sense, guys. I feel like projection is a very human thing. And it's normal, it's a very natural thing. But as you evolve spiritually, you realize that you don't really have to um accept projections that you don't want. And you also don't have to project onto other people. The more you, ask questions, the more you meditate, and you get clearer on what you want in this life, and you accept yourself for who you are, right? So a lot of people who project don't accept themselves, right? Who are constantly projecting, right? Like constantly, like they don't have any sort of barrier or filter. They have a hard time accepting who they are. So to combat this, you have to do some self-love work. And I made a podcast on this my first season. So season 1, episode 2, about self-love. The self-love will help you project less, right? Because you start to accept who you are. You start to love yourself. And the more you accept yourself, the more you have a less need to look at what's wrong with other people in your life. You look at what's going right in your life, right? You look at all the things that you are grateful for. And basically, this kind of like stops all the negative projection, right? So if somebody told you something and you didn't like it, when you start to love yourself, right? When you start to accept all of who you are, not just the favorable parts, quote unquote favorable, right? It's all favorable because that's how the universe made you, right? Right? Like you're literally awesome, completely, totally the way you are, right? So when you accept completely who you are, you tend to project less, right? You tend to like accept other beliefs, accept other people for who they are. And you can have that barrier, right? So there's a barrier where you're like, okay, this person may believe this, maybe I don't believe this, but it's okay, right? Because everybody's entitled to believe what they want to believe, right? Everybody's entitled to have their own core beliefs. So you step into this energy of everybody has their own reality. Everybody has their own experience, and that's what makes life beautiful, right? That's what makes that's what makes us unique and different. So projection, although we need it, because we do need it, it's just for our ego mostly. If you want to tap in spiritually, you can curb this, you can kind of channel this through self-love, through self-acceptance, and through basically asking questions. Don't assume things about people. I think assumptions can be the worst. Right? When you assume something about someone, ask the person or people, right, what is it that they are actually about, because you never know. I feel like when they answer, or when you get an answer, it's pretty interesting. It's not necessarily how you feel, but it's another beautiful or another unique expression in in your experience, right? So that's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. Next week's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of positivity, and how staying positive, or being positive in your life, can help you stay grounded, stay calm, and just basically get through your day successfully, okay? So tune in to next week's episode and stay right within.